Good morning. Very lush growth here. Maybe you have checked out the readings already. And maybe you can give your comments already. We have some tough topics today, starting with the prophet Amos. One of the earlier prophets. And he's calling out the sumptuous living of some. And there's a very interesting phrase in there that is something I think a lot of people can empathize with. The collapse of the house of Joseph. And this is not just Joe Smith's house over in the other street, and that could happen. A neighbor's house goes on fire, or an earthquake made it collapse. And over there on the other street is around the globe today, because we all know immediately when something happens around the world. We even see videos and pictures, and there's a tragedy. And the phrase that's here that got my attention is how they're sumptuously dining and drinking. You can read the details. They're very, very, very concrete, descriptive details that are worth reading, just even from the point of view of just a literary expression. The way they capture this moment, also in its moral category vis-a-vis the collapse of the house of Joseph down the street, so to say, in your own area, your own people. And that's kind of the question, is your own area, your own people, the word own. The mystery of life, the gift of life, our own people, our own area. It's not just me alone, it's our own, because if I'm happy and good, then I just can't go off and whistle dandily down the road and the neighbor's house is on fire. It has to implicate me, because I am empathetic. I have empathy for the person in need. And so the expression here that caught my attention really was very, very strong. It says, they are not made ill by the collapse of Joseph, because of the temperature change here in after the solstice period, the change of seasons. I got a little head cold. The air conditioning in certain spaces where we gather is too much for me, and and then you go out, and yesterday it was like 34 degrees in the afternoon, 33 degrees, and it's all these changes of temperature, and that gave me a head cold, right? It made me ill. Thanks be to God, not too badly. And a little night and daytime treatment keeps that under control, so the body adjusts and gets a grip of the situation again. But there are different things that make us ill. To eat a bad piece of fruit, didn't realize that it was gone off, and now have a tummy upset for a couple of days. Can happen, right? It made me ill. But the collapse of the house of Joseph makes me ill. And what this reveals is, it reveals the bond between us, our own people. our own people. Who are our own people? You know, could parents sleep tranquilly and let the baby cry all night? That's teething. No, the parents jump out of bed and they comfort the child and hug it and give it some little soother, some way, the attention, the love, so that the child doesn't feel alone facing the horrendous pain of teething as the tooth comes up through the gum. And there's that empathy because why? The neighbours next door don't get out of bed for that child. They just complain about their neighbours who don't get their child quiet and disturb the whole neighbourhood. And one reaction is complaint and the other is empathy. The empathetic reaction takes care of the needy, of the person in need, because it's my child, it's our child. And obviously the burden is primarily on the parents there. They're responsible. They have to respond, give response, be responsible, take responsibility for the child's pain, for its health, for its food, for a change of diapers. And the parents do that with great joy. It's amazing to watch parents and grandparents look after a little baby in need. And there's no payment. The baby doesn't give a tip. Maybe there's that exchange of smiles, and that's more than any tip. Why? Because it's not about possessions, it's not about things, it's about the relationships. These are our people, our own family, our own kith and kin, our own blood, and those are very strong bonds over which people even go to war. And there's a lot of discomfort in war and a lot of risk. And that's the history of mankind. And then so much destruction ensues. So here we have this prophet Amos calling out, doesn't it concern you that the house of Jacob is going to wreck and ruin? That it's fallen down, the fallen house of Joseph. Our brothers, our family, our people, our faith community, a community so blessed that has come through so many challenges and difficulties over the centuries since Abraham. And now we're at the prophet Amos. It's close to 1,000 years later. The formation of a sense of belonging to each other. And then we should go to the deepest root of this belonging, which is not new to us. It's from the very beginning of the account of biblical story, made in the image and likeness of God. And that's why we stop on the roadside for somebody who had an accident, somebody who had a flat tire, somebody who's in need, somebody elderly, and they were out shopping, but now they don't have the strength to lift the shopping bag, or they need to sit down, to help them. Somebody who's carrying the burden of somebody else. I told you many times the story of the woman who was very close to giving birth, and she was shopping in Ingolstadt in Germany, and another woman, quite a bit older than her, was helping her shopping. And it's a pedestrian zone, so you have to walk quite a bit, and she was there with her carrying bags for her because the younger woman was carrying a child in her womb. Empathy. It's interesting that in some languages the empathy is called intestinal, visceral. It's in Spanish they say entrañas, and that's the intestines. And entrañable means most beloved. And maybe that's because it's coming from my entrañas, it's coming from my body. This child is born. And these realities help us to get into the mystery and of our identity, the deep paradigms of our who we are. And when we live just sumptuously at a material level, there are so many other dimensions of our being that are frustrated. And some people can indulge for a while, but then they fail in the exams. There won't be much of a harvest because there wasn't much of a springtime sowing or care for the fields. Or just put it into athletic terms, the training wasn't done. The body wasn't conditioned to have the ultimate performance, which is to, in the image and likeness of love who created me. So I'm in the image and likeness of love, and so is each other person around me, every other person. And so we're deeply bonded because we're all carrying the image and likeness of love, which created us and redeems us. And so then you can read the words of Jesus about the rich man and Lazarus. And the poor man, Lazarus, has a name. The rich man doesn't have a name because he's just a material consumer. But maybe he's the poor man in the story. And there's the great gift of bringing education to a child. The child is very indigent, crying in the mother's arms, teething and all of that. But the poor parent would be the parent who wouldn't have empathy for the child. That would be a very poor parent, a parent who had not been prepared for marriage and parenting. The leader who only thinks of themselves and puts their people at risk because of their perspective, unable to see a broader perspective of humanity, is a very poor leader. Again, then with those people who are poor that way, we can easily condemn them. A poor farmer might have a lot of cattle on the mountain, but if he's not out there looking after them, he's really poor because his heart isn't equipped to look after the animals in their need. And they need to get to water. They need to have forage. Sometimes a cow needs help in childbirth. And a farmer who is negligent is a poor farmer. He's poor. He's poor as a person. So we need to take care of the children also, not just to provide the material for them, but to raise them in the great sense of solidarity. It's not just about me. Life is not just about me. And sometimes parents maybe miss the boat on that, or maybe other influences hijack the child to make them a self-centered, materialistic consumer, and that's the only version of life they aspire to. And how to help a young adult to have a transformation. And lots of young adults today are transforming, and we can have great hope. They're very poor in their sense of belonging, in their sense of responsibility for others. There are wonderful programs to help people like that when they go on mission trips and they see people that are indigent and so generous with their food. They put on the best display of generosity, not to show off, but to share. We're made for sharing, not for hoarding. Let's leave it like that for today, people. We have always, as always, a wonderful psalm, praise the Lord, my soul. And we have a great reading from Timothy where Paul is training him to be the responsible leader he needs to be, the type of lifestyle he needs to lead, to be that rich pastor, a pastor who is rich in virtue. Rich in ability to understand life and to lead others into the mystery of life. People, God bless you. See you later, alligators. Have a blessed Sunday. Switch over to Instagram for a minute, and then we'll have Mass at 8:15. God bless you.